Let me take you back to the year 333 BCE. Picture a young, ambitious king, just 23 years old, who had already set out on a mission to conquer the world. This man was Alexander of Macedon, who would later be known as Alexander the Great. He was on a journey to expand his empire, and the world would soon witness his unmatched military prowess. But what made him so unique? What set him apart from every other king, general, or conqueror who came before or after? One of the most telling stories of Alexander's uniqueness took place in the ancient city of Gordium, located in modern-day Turkey. It's the tale of the Gordian Knot. As Alexander and his army marched through Asia Minor during their quest to defeat the Persian Empire, they reached Gordium. This city wasn't particularly famous for its size or wealth, but for something far more intriguing: an ancient prophecy. At the heart of Gordium stood a large, complex knot tied to an old wagon, known as the Gordian Knot. Legend had it that the knot had been tied by Gordius, an ancient king of the Phrygians, and it was so intricately woven that it was impossible to see where it began or ended. But here's where the real magic lay. An oracle had foretold that whoever could untie the knot would become the ruler of all Asia. Many had tried and failed, from kings to warriors, philosophers to peasants. No one had been able to untangle the knot, and the prophecy had remained unfulfilled for centuries. The knot had become a symbol of the seemingly impossible. For most, it was an unsolvable riddle. But Alexander wasn't most people. Now, Alexander wasn't just a military leader. He was a man driven by destiny. From a young age, he had been raised to believe that he was meant for greatness. His mother, Olympias, had told him that he was descended from the Greek hero Achilles on his father's side, and from the god Zeus on his mother's side. On top of that, he had been tutored by none other than the great philosopher Aristotle, who had instilled in him a love for knowledge, strategy, and exploration. But more than anything, Alexander believed in fate, and he was certain that fate had chosen him to rule the world. When he heard of the Gordian Knot and the prophecy attached to it, Alexander knew he had to face this challenge. To him, it wasn't just a test of his intelligence or skill, it was a test of his destiny. As Alexander stood before the knot, a crowd gathered. The people of Gordium had seen many fail before him, and they were curious to see if this young king would be any different. There, under the gaze of his soldiers and locals, Alexander examined the knot. It was massive, twisted, and tangled beyond comprehension. The ropes were thick and tightly bound, with no visible ends. It seemed impossible, but for Alexander, failure was never an option. His life philosophy was built on overcoming obstacles, no matter how difficult they seemed. The crowd watched as Alexander took a moment to think. Perhaps they expected him to sit down and try to untangle the knot like those before him. Maybe they thought he'd spend hours struggling with it, slowly trying to find the key to unraveling the cords. But that wasn't Alexander's way. Without warning, Alexander stepped back, drew his sword, and in one swift, powerful motion, he sliced through the knot. The ropes fell to the ground in two clean halves, and the knot, which had defied countless others, was defeated. The onlookers were stunned. Alexander didn't waste time on convention or tradition. He didn't follow the path that others had tread before him. To him, what mattered wasn't how the problem was solved, but that it was solved. Alexander had fulfilled the prophecy, not by untangling the knot, but by cutting through it. This act would become a defining moment in his life, symbolizing his ability to think outside the box, to overcome the impossible, and to shape the world according to his own terms. In Alexander's eyes, there were no limits, only challenges waiting to be overcome. The story of the Gordian Knot spread like wildfire. It was a testament to Alexander's unique approach to life and conquest. It wasn't just about strength or cunning, it was about vision. He saw the world differently than others did. Where most saw an unsolvable puzzle, he saw an opportunity to seize his destiny. From that point onward, Alexander's fame only grew. He continued his conquests, eventually defeating the mighty Persian Empire and becoming the ruler of lands stretching from Greece to Egypt and into India. His empire was the largest the world had ever seen at that time, and his military tactics would be studied for centuries to come. But what truly made Alexander the Great wasn't just his conquests. It was his mindset. He believed that fate had chosen him for greatness, and he lived his life with the unwavering belief that he could achieve anything. The cutting of the Gordian Knot is the perfect example of his willingness to defy convention and pursue his goals relentlessly. Today, Alexander the Great is remembered as one of history's greatest military leaders. But beyond his battlefield successes, it's stories like the Gordian Knot that reveal his true genius. He was a man who refused to accept the limitations placed before him. A man who believed that nothing, not even an impossible knot, could stand in the way of his destiny. His legacy is not just one of empire, but of determination, innovation, and the power of thinking differently. Alexander showed the world that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is not to follow the rules, but to create your own. This story perfectly encapsulates why Alexander was so unique. He wasn't just a conqueror. He was a visionary who dared to challenge the impossible and carve out his own path to greatness.